two people. Both of them just got out of the service. Both of them decide to rent, okay? Person A says, I'm not getting into this market because it's too expensive. Person B says, I'm going to use VHDA, I'm going to use my VA benefit, I'm going to get closing cost assistance, and I'm going to get down payment assistance. They get into a house. 5 years from now, financially, this guy is here and this guy is here. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Gary Explains Things. I'm Gary Hughes, also known as Nova Agent, and this is Yogi. He's the hardest working dog in real estate. A lot of headlines today about first-time home buyers being forced out of the market, not being able to compete against cash buyers, and just a lot of negative news about first-time home buyers. We want to address that today, so I've invited Stefano Doherty from First Home Mortgage to have a discussion with me about what we can do to help first-time home buyers and how they're really not out of the market and it's not as bad as everyone wants you to think.
Appreciate you having me on, Gary. My name is Stefano Doherty, and I'm a loan originator with First Home Mortgage. I focus most of my business in Northern Virginia, working with first-time home buyers and making the home buying process as easy as possible for them.
Fantastic. So for people who don't understand mortgage lending, tell me first what a loan originator is.
So when somebody wants to buy a house, there's very, very few people that have enough cash on hand to just buy it outright, so they need to borrow. So I act as the intermediary between the buyer and the seller. So I help the buyer finance the purchase of the house by providing them with the money that they need to close.
As the loan originator, you are the person they would call.
Yes, correct.
You're the guy who's going to answer the phone and give them the details. You're not going to pass them off to somebody else.
Now, when somebody wants to buy a house, or if they have a specific house in mind, they'll call me. I will go through a short pre-approval process with them, collect the necessary documents that we need, qualify them based off that, and then we move on from there.
There's a secret here in Virginia, and I'm going to call it a secret because I think not a lot of people know about it. It began as Virginia Housing Development Authority, recently has changed its name to Virginia Housing. And one of the things that they do is work really closely with first-time home buyers. As a lender, you work with Virginia Housing. Is that correct?
So Virginia Housing is a non-government, not-for-profit organization that uses its funds to facilitate home buying in the state, to kind of stimulate it and make it as easy as possible for mainly first-time home buyers, but on occasion also repeat home buyers, to be able to afford the house that they want through, there's multiple different products that they have, two of the most important which are down payment assistance and closing cost assistance, which are vital for a lot of people to crack into getting their first house, considering how expensive it can be, especially in this area.
But they also offer both conventional and FHA loans, right?
Correct. They offer conventional FHA, USDA, the Department of Agriculture, which is for more, houses in more rural areas of the state, and VA.
And VA.
Yes, correct.
So if you're a veteran wanting to use the VA program, you can still go through Virginia Housing to get the down payment assistance.
Absolutely, yeah. So going through Virginia Housing, you can, in addition to the 100% financing that the VA offers, you can also get a lower interest rate, and you can have closing costs funded to you in the form of a grant, which is not repaid from Virginia Housing.
So I think one of the things you mentioned, and it may have blown by a lot of people or some of the listeners early on, is that this is not a government agency, it's a nonprofit.
Correct.
Organization. They just simply use the state of Virginia credit authority to secure their money. Is that how you're able to get a lower than market rate?
In 1972, the Virginia General Assembly created the Virginia Housing Development Authority to help facilitate first-time home ownership in the state. They're a non-for-profit, non-government agency that uses their revenue to fund grants and loans to help facilitate, to help lower the cost and to ease the pain of buying your first house in the state.
You also just took my trivia question, but that's all right.
What year was it? Is that what
what year was VHDA?
50 years ago this year.
But I'll try to think of another one there. So VHDA is using their revenue stream to underwrite this program. Is it a complicated process to get involved with that? Talk to me about the application.
It is not. So if you want to take advantage of what the VHDA has to offer, First Home is a delegated underwriter with the VHDA, which means that we have a more streamlined underwriting process with the Virginia Development Authority, making it easier and quicker to obtain a loan through them. So as a loan originator, well, you'll come to me and you'll tell me that I want to use the VHDA's conventional loan program and I want to apply for their down payment assistance program. And since we have a connection with the VHDA, we simply create and underwrite our conventional loan as we do normally, but we correspond with the VHDA to make sure that we're following all of their underwriting guidelines and that the borrower qualifies for the down payment assistance that they need. And it comes in different amounts depending on what program you choose. And that's delved into a little bit later personally with your loan originator, but it's a very easy process and it does not take any longer than just any regular loan.
So when you say you have a connection with VHDA, that's not you're going out to dinner with the chairman and so you get some privilege. You've gone through a certifying process, right? And now you're on their list of approved lenders. Is that
correct? So we are delegated underwriters with the VHDA, and the way that it normally works, if you aren't, is you underwrite the loan in-house. And after that, it is sent to the VHDA where they additionally underwrite it to make sure that it corresponds and satisfies their requirements. But as a delegated underwriter, that second process of having it sent and underwritten within the VHDA is exempt. So we just underwrite it in-house. We just have to follow their guidelines, and as long as we do, you get the funding you need, you get the assistance you need, and you get in the amount that you want.
We have two really important pieces here that make home buying more affordable for first-time buyers. Fun fact, first-time buyer is someone who hasn't owned a house in 3 years. So this may not be your absolute first house, correct, but you could still qualify as a first-time buyer.
Correct.
So we can get assistance for that first-time buyer for their closing costs. We can get assistance for that first-time buyer with their down payment.
Correct.
Right? There's another piece to this that the world misses and really makes a difference. It's called the mortgage credit certificate. Could you tell us about a mortgage credit certificate?
So the mortgage credit certificate, it's commonly called the MCC, is a lot simpler than most people think it is. It is something that you usually pay upfront for, but if you go through the VHDA with a VHDA loan, that charge is exempt. And what it is a dollar for dollar credit on your tax liability on the interest that you pay on your house. It's a 10% credit. So if I had a $150,000 loan that I'm paying 5% on, every year I'm paying $7,500 in interest. I take 10% of that, $750, and I get it righted off on my taxes.
So normally we would take that $7,500 and put it on Schedule A, and it would reduce our gross income. And then the tax is determined by that gross income.
Correct.
The mortgage credit certificate allows you to take a little less than that on Schedule A, but the remainder goes as a direct credit. So when you calculate this is how much tax I owe, you now deduct it by that amount. Is that
correct? Yes, and that is every year for the life of the loan as long as you don't refinance it.
So it actually reduces the amount of tax even if you don't file Schedule A.
Right. It's beneficial for almost everybody. Not a lot of people know about it, but it's incredibly useful and will save you thousands of dollars at least, if not tens of thousands.
Full disclosure, it is because it's a tax credit. You really should. You
should speak with a tax professional about it. That's not our field of expertise. We provide the MCC, but if you want complete clarity about the program and if you want to know if it is 100% beneficial to you, you should go and speak to a third-party tax specialist about it.
And I think that's one of the reasons why people don't know so much about it. A lot of realtors, a lot of lenders, like, that's a tax thing, I'm not going to talk about it. But here we're a little bit out front with stuff, right, because the goal here is to help people understand how all of this can be put together.
Especially now in this current market, a lot of people think that buying your first house or just getting a mortgage in general is just too expensive and it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you take advantage of all of these wonderful programs and options that you have as a Virginian, choosing the right loan program, if you're a veteran, choosing a VA loan, taking advantage of what the VHDA has to offer, using their funds to help you cover your down payment, your closing costs, and then in addition to that, taking advantage of the MCC, you can potentially, that will be the difference for many, many people between being able to afford their own home and not being able to afford their own home.
And that's one of the reasons we're here. One of the prime drivers for inflation is rent inflation.
Correct.
And one thing's for sure, your rent is going to go up next year. Another thing that's for sure is that same house is going to cost more next year. We don't know where interest rates will be next year, but they're probably not going to go back to 1%, 2%, 3%.
A lot of people are really surprised at how inexpensive a mortgage can be. It is typically going to be more expensive than your rent. However, there's a lot of options to help people get into it for the first time and to ease that pain.
Two people, both of them just got out of the service. Both of them decide to rent, okay? Person A says, I'm not getting into this market because it's too expensive. Person B says, I'm going to use VHDA, I'm going to use my VA benefit, I'm going to get closing cost assistance, and I'm going to get down payment assistance. They get into a house. 5 years from now, financially, this guy is here and this guy is here.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and the closing cost assistance that you can get from a VA loan through the VHDA, it's a grant, so you don't even have to pay it back. So the barrier to entry is fairly low, and you can get financing anywhere from, you can put down as much as 3.5% or as little as 0%, depending on what program you choose. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Stefano, thanks for coming in and talking to us today. I hope this has been really helpful for our audience, for the people who are young, buying your first home, or if you haven't owned a home for 3 years. You step back into that first-time buyer. This is a way to reset and get going again. And there you have it, folks. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed.
Did I do okay?
You did great.
I feel like I could have done better.